Yet. There you go. Got it now. Great. Well, thanks everyone for the intros, and I'll start with my introduction as well. And great to see different uh, roles, different skill sets, and to know more about your backgrounds. So for regarding myself, so I've been in tech throughout my career. You know, about 15 plus. I mean, you can go keep the front slide, the title slide
Okay,
up again. So I'll,
that's
I'll
fine.
come to this. Um, and my journey has been, through developer. Then I did business analysis. It was more systems analysis to begin with, and then moved into business analysis. So I know someone in the call has business analyst experience, and and from there, I had always believed that my strengths lied in I've always been a visual person and a big picture person. So I enjoyed the enterprise-wide business analysis more, and the program-wide business analysis more, and thought, enterprise architecture or business architecture is the next way forward. So yeah, I got a an opportunity with KPMG 3.5 years ago, and I applied for it, and here I am. So that's how I got into enterprise architecture as a, formally, but before that, um, when I was working in a previous consultancy firm, as part of my business analysis role, it it kind of almost delved into what's called business architecture, which is kind of linking your whole organization-wide capabilities to your processes. And like I said, I enjoyed that very much. And I've worked across different industries: finance, healthcare, utilities. I spent a lot of time in the utilities industry, both worked within the industry and in the management consultancy world. And as you can tell, I've not, whilst my initial um, days in my career, about 3-4 years, were a developer, majority has been spent in business analysis world, product delivery, also delved into a bit of project management. So, and that's how I got into the enterprise architecture sphere. And when I started doing this role, um, as you could see, a lot of the other enterprise architects I worked with have come from solid technical background. I don't want to get into the gender aspect of it yet, but really hardcore developers, typically from a solution architecture perspective. Um, but the role itself, what I found when I worked with the clients, or I am working with the clients now, is that understanding the business and being able to communicate to the business, that's quite key. And yeah, and that kind of put that perspective, that kind of got me thinking. It's like, you have all these technical solution architecture, all, really sound technical people, but you have to understand the business. And that's something I found a gap there. I found a gap there where I position myself there. And I'm thinking now, the reason what's driven me to do this presentation now is if I can do it, spent majority of my life as a business analyst, as a product delivery person, then why not? We need that diversity of thought and gender. So that gives a bit of context, and that's what's driven me to do this presentation. And I've kept this quite high level in terms of giving you a general overview of what are the basic skill sets from my perspective, and then really just want to keep this open and interactive, really. And I've heard answers to some of the questions which I was planning to ask, but I will ask them anyway. But if you could go to the next slide. Thanks. About me, so yeah, I live in Yorkshire, so I like going to do a lot of walks, a lot of outdoor activities. And this is me doing my first 10K walk. And this is me with my paragliding instructor during holiday in Tenerife. Now, these two kind of mean a lot to me in the sense that when I started doing my 10K walk, I didn't have the faith in myself that I would last, because Yorkshire, it was quite a hilly route and it was forecast to be raining all day. Um, but I muddled through it. I managed to do it. And I kind of separated from the group I was walking with. And the paragliding instructor, I'd never done it before, but the instructor, I have a lot to thank him, because he really encouraged me, and I was almost on the verge of, no, I can't do this, I'm dropping this. So I'm scared of heights and all that stuff. Is like, if you once you start on your journey, you'll really love it. And but once I started the journey, once I started paragliding, put my foot off the ground, it was the most beautiful sight. And this was, when I link it back to when I started my EA journey, that's how I felt. So I was a business analyst. How do I get into enterprise architecture? And these are kind of similar things. I don't have the skill set. It's quite a long and hilly walk. So I just wanted to share this a bit about myself. And the whole reason was, if there are people in the audience who are thinking, maybe I don't have the skill set, you have to be super technical to be an enterprise architect. I link back to these experiences, and I'm standing in front of you and doing this talk. So if you go to the next slide, and I'll get to the enterprise architecture bit. So I've heard answers. Some of you say that you are interested in getting into enterprise architect, but if I can get some numbers, or if you want to raise your hand and mention it again, that will be helpful. You can drop interest in the chat, or
yeah. So we've got a poll in the chat. If anybody wants to add any context to that, by speaking or putting a message in the chat, you're more than welcome to. But for the time being, we've got a yes or no simple question in the chat there.
Cool. I've got 75%. Yep. Yeah, I did hear a few people talk, and we'll come to the skill set. So if you go to the next slide as well, and again, what's people's view of what enterprise architecture is about? Any thoughts, any insights, would be keen to know your perceptions or understanding, or what do enterprise architects do in your respective organizations?
To me, it's more organizational strategy, but for a technology perspective, you're thinking around that. So very similar to that.
Okay.
Hi, Gavdashri here. From my side, I think it is technology agnostic, understanding not on what technology you have to use, but what are the basic principles and the foundations that you need to follow to structure the enterprise architecture safe and secure in this fast running world.
Yeah.
Pretty similar from my understanding.
Yeah, there you go. Cool. If you go to the next slide, I think it really builds on what you guys said, and makes presentation, it kind of reiterates the message in different way. It aligns business strategy with information technology, and the key thing is the full spectrum. You have to take that holistic view and kind of bring the different elements into in some kind of a structure, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. We always talk about that TOGAF circle, and there's business, there's data, there's applications, there's underlying infrastructures, kind of bringing all that together, but always keeping the business in mind. It achieves this by bridging that gap. And why do we need it? Businesses need the right technology, and whether you're in the public sector or the private sector, right tech adoption is a critical investment. As I've highlighted, cloud, AI, data is probably something you hear every day, and what these technologies are doing is they are merging the gap, they're narrowing the gap between businesses and technology. And businesses don't have a choice not to know about AI or data. They have to understand the data better than what they used to. It's not just some database or DBA person looking after our data. That's not the case anymore. Cloud, they have to understand it's not just data that's sitting in data centers. Finance teams need to know cloud much more, because of the way the cloud is financed. So, and that's where I think bridging that gap and having that holistic view, and that's quite critical in my view. And where, as long as you understand tech, in my view, understanding the business, its strategies, what its core competencies are, what will make it more competitive, or if I'm thinking of the public sector, how better you can use technology to serve the citizens who are more digitally savvy. That, I think EAs have a key role in playing that. And business analysts, or if you're a product person, or if you're in the project delivery or program delivery, our roles historically, these roles have done that. We've engaged more with the business. We understand the business problems, and we link in with the technology teams, IT teams, developers. So if anything, these roles are better placed, or are equally well placed to be in the enterprise architecture. And these skill sets, in my view, need to be considered. So if you look at why do we need it, businesses need the right technology. So understanding what is right for the business, that doesn't have to be, or that doesn't have to come from a deep technical person, if you know what I mean. So if you go to the next slide. And I try to put this in a picture as well. So, if you want to get from where you are now, which is a sporadic, view, not very organized, everyone working in their silos. If you consider each house is a project or a program trying to deliver change, then if you want to get to something, holistic, you need to know how where each of these houses, or what, what each of these houses or buildings bring to the city or the organization as a whole, and then transfer it into something futuristic and beautiful and quite a savvy looking building in my view. So you need to have that whole view. So I always try to use this picture to kind of rationalize your applications and build a more neater view of business and technology. I've touched upon it briefly. What skills do you think an enterprise architect needs? But just wanted to touch base with yourself in the audience as well. Before you came to this call and before you heard what I said, what did you have this perception of we need to be deeply tech to be an enterprise architect, or were you sure that the skill set you had, there is a career path into enterprise architecture?
I thought we need to be really technical to be an enterprise architecture, to be honest.
Great.
Yeah, that was
Yes.
quite similar to my side. Like coming very much from the strategy side, it very much seemed like the technical side was maybe the bit where I had much more learning to come from. But
Yeah.
it's interesting with some things you said, kind of repicturing that.
Yeah. Okay. That's good to know if that's helped.
I
Any
guess
more?
I felt that you needed kind of an equal technical and business knowledge and be able to merge those skills.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess for me, it's always about how technical is technical. That's the question. I mean, I think technical is quite a broad spectrum, and I'm guilty, as Shri said, of assuming that you needed to be technical, but no one's ever defined what the technicality is.
Yeah.
So, and then I'm also curious. So, if you're a solutions architect, as an example, what's the difference between that and an enterprise architect? Because what a solutions architect does, in my opinion, is maybe a bit more elevated than what a business analyst does.
Yeah.
So whilst the business analyst might focus on one particular area or thing relating to a project, a solutions architect might look at it from, say, a portfolio delivery type view.
Yeah.
But then where does the enterprise architect sit?
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good question. And what I'd also like to mention here is that roles vary in different organizations. So yes, you have solution architects. If you go to the next slide, Kevin, thanks. And I just wanted to bring this up as well. You know, some myths about enterprise architects and really good points. You know, and it kind of reiterates some of the previous discussions we've had just now. It's all about technology. In some organizations, it's perceived as a progression from solution architect or a senior developer or a tech lead. And again, what each of these roles will mean in each organization can be completely different. And it's all about frameworks and methodology. So I'm TOGAF certified, and that's the most talked about framework. And that's all EAs do. Maintaining documentation and running tech governance. We've touched upon the first two briefly. I wanted to bring about, also talk, these are also common assumptions and perceptions of the role. Yes, there is governance. Yes, it helps to know about frameworks and methodologies. Next slide, please, Kevin. But I wanted to share this with you, and hopefully that will help. That this is the kind of the full spectrum of what an enterprise architecture should do, or enterprise architecture function should do. It's the full breadth. We talked about linking business goals to technology. You start right from the top, your strategies, goals, and objectives. There's the business view. You structure the business in using different rules. You have value streams, capabilities, information types, and quite a few business analysts in the call, or from program delivery. Of the dark blue boxes, are you familiar with these words? Are you comfortable yourself that yes, you can do this from the skill set, and I can use my current skill set, develop it to do these things? I mean, they are all about linking business to technology, and I'll come to that question of how technical is technical. So, and then as you move to the lighter blue boxes, you go into functionality, functional capabilities, you get into application architecture, logical data architecture. That's quite important. It's understanding data not at a deep technical level, that's where solution architects come in. But as an enterprise architecture, you need to understand at an enterprise level what your data is, what is your data about, and then you have to know about software components and integration platforms, but know it at a level that you understand what it does, not how it does. That's for the engineers and developers, technical leads, in some organizations, solution architects. They have the expertise. As an enterprise architect, you need to understand how these all these different dimensions come together, and how they link to the strategic goals and objectives. You know, what do we need to do to enable the business or the public sector organization to achieve its objectives, right? Any questions on this slide? Does it help? And I've also put a source where I frequently go to, and the picture I frequently refer to is from this website, which I've shared here. Any thoughts? Does that help answer previous question on it's technical, I need to know technical, you have to be deeply technical? Does that help answer any of your questions? Or
Yes, to a certain degree. I mean, it's like you just rightly said, you still have to have, for lack of a better word, the general knowledge of
absolutely
the technological things to then
Yeah.
be able to understand how the other moving parts fit
Yeah.
in your picture. So it's almost like having a puzzle,
Hmm.
knowing what the finished product looks like when you open the puzzle, but then knowing what parts are going to go where. So that's
Spot
really
on.
interesting for me, because I just sort of assumed that your level of knowledge of these things had to be that in depth. But from what you've just said, not necessarily. It's to know enough to then let the SMEs do what it is that they need to do to deliver.
Absolutely. That's what it boils down to. But the key thing is always your key role is linking and working with the business and quite senior stakeholders in the business, really. I mean, you know, some of you have been managing consultants, and, you know, if you're, you know, working as a business architect or enterprise architect, and the two are quite close, you work with quite senior stakeholders. You work with head of departments or CIOs and CTOs, and they don't have in-depth knowledge of every system or every data model, or, you know, every interface. So, and it's having that ability to communicate and know enough to talk about it. So, you know, if I go to a CIO or CTO and talk about cloud, if I go into the depths of what AWS capabilities are, or what Google Cloud, I'm not sure that's the right audience for that. So it's knowing enough what cloud does. I mean, I'm using it as an example, or security is a big thing. So knowing enough, understanding the technologies which provide security enough to talk about it to the business, and how that will help achieve the business its goals and objectives. That,
Yeah,
you know,
the way,
you can go on. Sorry, Kevin.
I say the way that I've always found it easiest to understand it myself and explain it is to use the other version of architecture that we're all familiar with. So if I was a building architect, I could draw a wonderful plan for a building, and I know that it needs a roof, it needs windows, it needs a door, it needs a plot of land that's the right size and, you know, kind of the right kind of integrity. It needs plumbing, it needs electrics, but I don't know how to wire up a house. I don't know how to install a boiler and do the plumbing. I don't know how to fit a roof. But I understand all those components are important, and I understand enough about those components to get the SME in to actually do that job. And I think, you know, just applying that to the context of a business or an IT organization is the easiest way I've found to kind of articulate it.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, as you go, from top to bottom, you'll see physical data architecture, infrastructure. That's where the different architecture roles kind of start appearing. You've got infrastructure architects, data architects, solution architects. They're all the experts in their own area. And as an enterprise architect, you lean on them, to be honest, a lot. And this is where your stakeholder management skills come in. You have to have good stakeholder relationships with the technology people and also the business people, because they have the business expertise and the products which they are the experts in that, and that'll help you map all your business artifacts, your capabilities, value streams, etc. And if you go to the next slide, I mean, these things people can, it's specific to every organizations, but beyond these, what enterprise architecture means is, if you're a big picture thinker, if you have the ability to understand the business, what the business problems are, what market they operate in, what are the kind of citizens they serve, if you're generally a problem solver, and I'm thinking about the business analysts and the products and the program people, you have to understand the tech landscape, what it does, what technology is, what cloud is, what AI is, and you're able to communicate to senior stakeholders effectively at their level. You have an appreciation for governance and assurance. None of these are core technical skills. As a business analyst, as a product person, as a program person, or as a solution architect, beyond your core skill set, if you have if you are this kind of person who looks at the whole system, who likes and enjoys that, who kind of brings really complex technology ecosystem and complex business operations together, that's for you. You can always learn EA tools. Technology is fast-paced. It's constantly changing. You have to know about it, not in a lot of detail, unless you want to be, you want to go down that route, that's fine. But to me, this is the key slide. I mean, if you want to take one thing away from this presentation, it's this. That's what you need. I mean, when I started doing this, I didn't know about EA tools. I didn't have a TOGAF certification, but what I had was that I've always considered myself as a big picture person, visual person, build good stakeholder relationships. And I just went with these skills to build my other EA skills, like your EA tools, etc. And any thoughts? Any questions? I don't know if anyone in the call has had thought about these, or if you want to take away one thing, that's it. This is the slide I would take away.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay, so for me, I studied computer science, and but I don't have. I'll say I have some experience, okay, but in terms of trainings, and I did a bit of data analysis as well. Also, I did some business analysis training as well, but I've not been able to practice as a business analyst. Okay. Would you recommend that I begin to look into taking TOGAF as an exam to be able to transition into?
Yeah. TOGAF, right? I've given TOGAF. There is nothing I mean, I don't know who anyone else in the audience has, but it's application, it's scenarios, it's that's what it builds. It gives you a framework to set up all the different dimensions of enterprise architecture in the right way. So given you've got a degree in computer science, you've done business analysis, I'd say, with the right training or studying for it, go for it. It definitely will help you on your journey to being an enterprise architect, if that's what you want to be.
And how long will this process take us? I mean,
it
what
depends. is what I'd say. Go on, sorry.
The exams, say I finish with the exams tomorrow. What should be the first step I'll take after writing the exams? Should I start looking for a business architect role, or I should just start looking, enterprise architect role, or I should just start looking for a business analyst role? Where should I start from?
So given you have, that's for you to decide, and also depends on the level of experience you have. So, get your certification. And personally, I started with doing business architecture work because that helped me to do core enterprise architecture work. That's based on my experience, and because I had that business analysis and product delivery background. And from what you've told me, if you have a similar one, go for that for a much, I'd say, a natural transition into enterprise architecture. But I'm talking that from my experience, really. I think Shri has her hand up.
Yes, Kavita. So I've just opened the certifications portal and just trying to see, what are the certifications and etc. I could see that the certification is given by a number of different institutions: IT4IT, DPMOC, TOGAF, Archimate.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
Is it the same? Which has? I know that you are TOGAF certified.
Mm-hmm.
My question is, does all of them have the same level of importance? And the second thing is TOGAF. I can see that there are 2 exams, part 1 and part 2.
Yeah.
So you would be TOGAF certified only after you've completed both of them?
Yeah. So TOGAF has TOGAF Foundation and TOGAF Practitioner. Mm-hmm. I gave both of them together. You can do both of them together if you can.
Okay.
So yeah, if you are TOGAF Foundation certified, I would clearly state that. If you're TOGAF Practitioner certified, I would clearly state that. In terms of importance, I wouldn't put one over the other. I guess that's more a Kevin question than me. But when I was looking to move towards architecture, TOGAF was quite asked for.
Okay.
And it gives you a framework. But equally, I've done some work in Archimate. Eventually, they are the same pieces of information, the different dimensions I shared in the previous slide. It's how you present them and how you structure business technology artifacts. That's what different frameworks talk about. I mean, I can talk about TOGAF and Archimate. In all honesty, I don't know about the other frameworks, but I wouldn't expect it to be much different. All it is how you present your business technology aspects. How do you present that? And I'm simplifying it. It's not as simple, but just bringing it to the bringing it to basic. That's what it is. So what I would also recommend, something which I'm keen to do as well, is with Agile, and there's a lot of focus on business agility, and Agile is everywhere these days. I would also focus on getting yourself, agile architecture. TOGAF has a set of agile architecture certifications as well.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know if some business analysts or program people on the call, if you have any agile certificate, I would recommend SAFe as well. I know it's not architecture related, but enterprise level SAFe certification is it helped me to actually link enterprise architecture with agile methodologies. So even if you don't get certified, it's worth just getting a read on or know about what that is. So
Yeah,
I
that
hope
makes
I've
sense.
answered that question. I've
Yeah.
rambled a lot. So yes, when I was going into TOGAF, when I was going into enterprise architecture, TOGAF, a lot of organizations were asking for TOGAF. Having knowledge of agile helped me, and a certification always adds credibility.
Thanks. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So I don't know, Kevin would be better placed than me to answer what is in demand, which certification is in demand. So
Yeah.
From my limited experience recently, TOGAF is the go-to, but I have a strong sense that certifications are mainly asked for when the person doing the recruiting doesn't understand the role particularly well and they want a crutch to rely on. So they're like, we want a Prince2 person, we want an agile person, we want a TOGAF person. It's kind of a sifting mechanism before they put you in touch with somebody that understands the role well enough to speak to you about it in detail. So it's nice to have. It's good to have the base level of understanding of what these frameworks actually are and what they suggest, but your ability to apply that pragmatically in the context and the environment that you're in is the important thing. You're never going to deliver your entire EA work in line with TOGAF or in line with anything else, in my opinion. So it's having that understanding of what it is enough so that you can confidently challenge it in some instances, I guess, is probably more important than actually saying I live by this. Naya, you've got your hand up.
yeah.
No, I just had a few more questions on. So, when you showed the misconceptions about EA, I think one of the items there was it's about frameworks and methodologies. I would probably be one of those person who had those misconceptions. And so I just wondered how much of the work of the EA or business architect is theoretical, and like if I look at the day-to-day experience wise in terms of what you do, how much would you state is more around documentation and these frameworks and theory, and how much is it on what it is actually on a day-to-day basis? I think that would be something I'm curious to know that you do. Which is different than usual project or work.
It varies, if I'll say. So your documentation and your governance is related to how heavily regulated your organization is. So obviously, if you're working in a financial sector, organizations are very, very, very highly regulated. So KPMG is an audit, it's primarily perceived as an audit firm, isn't it? So that's highly regulated. So that's why there's a lot of focus on governance and documentation, but doesn't mean you go overboard with it. So there is an element of that, which is why you have your EA, and that's part, a part of reason, a good part why organizations bring in enterprise architects is also to kind of, if we're audited, guys, do we have a view of where all our systems are and what they are for, etc., etc. So that's where your EA tools come in, enterprise architecture tools, which bring together your business capabilities, your business goals with the technology they support in. But to get to that point, I would say you have to apply these skill sets which are flashing on the screen, because how do you bring together those two, whether it's on a piece of paper or an EA tool? How do you bring it together? You bring it together by talking to people, by understanding at a high level what the main technologies are, talking to the business, and you using your systems thinking to bring it all together. So it will be a combination of both, and your level of documentation and governance will depend on, well, in my experience, I've always seen where you're more regulated, organizations tend to be more rigorous with what they capture and what their governance processes are. But
Does this mean this role is, or this function primarily exists in organizations which are more regulated, which are more larger scale? Like the chances of finding this role in a small or medium organization is lesser. Is that a fair assumption to say?
I mean, you're putting the governance, that's not, if I've come across it, that's not the only driver, I would say. As an EA, as an enterprise architect, your role is putting that structure around, I would say, what the organization is, what does it do, and how does technology enable that? And whether it's, even if it's a, I don't know, startup, say a digital product, the scale may be smaller, but if you're developing a product, you have to link in, right? What is the if this is going to be my next feature, how is it going to benefit? What is it that I'm trying to achieve out of it? What's the goal for this, and how will technology enable it? Maybe at a smaller scale, but it'll still add that value. Your EA tool doesn't have to be a complex. You may not need an EA tool. You could work off spreadsheets or whatever. I would recommend you have one, but it doesn't have to be that. But looking at it practically, yes, financial organizations have got more levels of EA maturity than any other sector, and that's why, if you look at their technologies are better as well. Mostly they tend to invest, and EA is a key driver in that, because they have mature EA functions. They have that visibility. Using the EA tools or the function enables them to think that way. But it's a challenge in government bodies or any other sector for different reasons, where you don't have that holistic view, and that plays its part. So I don't know. Does that answer your question, or yes or no?
No, I think it gives a good idea. As I said, I think that's my experience, that this role is probably more advertised, at least in larger or financial sector or public sectors, than other organizations. But I just wanted to reconfirm whether it's just me.
Kavita, I've got a question I was going to ask at the end, but I think it's relevant given the point that was just raised there. So in my experience, most companies don't have that maturity around architecture at all, never mind enterprise architectures. They might have, like you say, domain specific architects that sit on those projects, but they don't have that view of, portfolio level or even enterprise level, the holistic view of the whole piece. If you're working on one of those organizations and keen to progress into an EA role, what would your advice be around how to build up a body of work and a portfolio that you could demonstrate somebody else gives you that experience? Or how can you shift the dial internally to get your company to think of enterprise architecture as a relevant function for them?
I mean, it's always benefits, right? It's always benefits. So, we worked with one of the clients. So the enterprise architect function was just a basically how should I say it? A timesheet code where you had a whole bunch of solution architects according to the enterprise architect code. And because it was all technical, no one could articulate well what was the benefit, what is the value. So you could demonstrate it by doing a proof of concept, and convincing your senior manager or leadership that this is why we need it. It's again going back to business analysis, like treating it as a problem. And why do you need, why do we need this, and what is the gap? That's what we do as consultants, and advise the clients the benefits of having it, and more importantly, why not. And like I said, it doesn't have to be expensive. The tools you choose, the governance you put in, it's what you need for your business. And in these agile, ways of working and everything, you can obviously evolve your function rather than put a massive amount. So I think it's more, it's benefits, it's articulate your benefits, quantify it if where possible, a brief plan of how you're going to do about it, and what's the value it's going to add.
So, David, you got your hand up.
Hello, nice to meet you, Kavita. I'm not sure if we've spoken before.
No, we haven't.
I sell enterprise architecture as a service into the US market, and I'm not in any way trying to hijack your thing. First of all, I'm doing the first thing that you never do in a presentation. I turned up late, and I'm now about to ask you about questions that you probably presented on about 25 minutes ago. Do you usually define things like your architecture principles before you begin to set your governance? And I'm very sorry if that was in your slide deck, because obviously I've missed it.
Right. So this deck doesn't go into details of what EA does or what are the different artifacts of EA, right?
Okay.
What this is about is, what are the skill sets
to achieve to get to us.
To get there, and I've tried to burst some common myths and perceptions which exist of getting into enterprise architecture. So perceptions of you have to be deeply technical. I don't think that, because I wasn't that, but I'm doing it now. So there you go. And I want everyone else to know about that and start thinking about this. And the slide which you have in front of you, which you can see, in my view, these are the core skill set, and all your architecture patterns, principles, you can learn that, you can pick that up. So no, we didn't talk about architecture patterns, I'm afraid.
No problem. No, I was just wanted to see, because I think the approach can be very project managery. I think you can absolutely be a relatively, experienced project manager and do an awful lot of this, because again, you're talking to the vendors, you're documenting pros, cons, showing them where you see the benefits, and then like a common practice would have been to go to like getting a Gartner backup and showing like a spread of what backs up what you're kind of leaning towards in that direction. But again, that's the architecture piece, not getting to the role. And I'm not going to tangent to that on you.
No.
So
no, I just want to talk about career paths to being an enterprise architect. So
got it.
And kind of trying to bring help with diversity in gender, but also diversity in thought, I think, because I think my next slide talks a bit about stats. If you can bring that up, Kevin, please. But happy to touch base and converse after the call. Or
I'm so sorry for doing this, especially after coming in late.
It's absolutely fine.
That's right, David.
I
think David's just volunteered for the next session on EA and taking it to the next level. So we've got a couple of minutes left on the predefined time for this slot. So a quick roundup of the important factors around the diversity aspect, please, Kavita. That'd be great, mate.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is a number, if you look at it, it's March 23, but 13% are women, and a lot of fear, when I read a lot about these and some of the architecture leaders, women architecture leaders, they hear from, they say the same things, having 13% of women, you're not bringing that diversity of thought, in my view, more so into this area, into this expertise. And it's, you have to, if you have those core skill sets, which I mentioned in the previous slide, go for it. You might enjoy it. If you're a big picture person, understand the business. I think, we are great communicators. We build relationships, and those are the key things which you need to be an enterprise architect. If you go to the next slide, Kevin, promise that's the last one. Yeah, so, go for it. Now is the time. Business and technology is ever, diminishing. Pace of technology is fast. Understand technology, know the business, and I don't see why people with, who are not super technical or who have not been super technical, that shouldn't hold you back from being an enterprise architect. It brings diversity in thought, abilities, and perspectives. So that's it. The next slide was for thank you and questions, but I'll stop there.
That's okay. So just from my side, thank you, Kavita, for running the session. Really great. And I think it's given a lot of people a proper understanding of what EA actually is. Anybody that wants to reach out to Kavita off the back of this, if they attended live or watched the recording, we will share details of how to connect on LinkedIn and things. Any final words from you, Kavita, before we start the recording?
I think, happy to, reach out, feel free to reach out, any, follow-on discussions, architecture patterns, what have you, principles, anything, or, anything about frameworks, happy to talk about, something which I'm quite passionate about. I don't want to be sat in a room full of techie enterprise architects. I want, different, people from different, come from different skill set and different areas, different skills in technology to be part of that. So, yeah, David, happy to catch up afterwards.
Yeah, I'd love to help if I can help you even build